Yes, Prabhu. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janvalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janvalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajjanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajjanaranjana Yamuna Tire Vanachari Yamuna Tire Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janvalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jan Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tire Vanachari Yamuna Tire Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jagannathai, Baladevai, Jaya Subhadra. Jayo Radha Vallabha Shri Radhe. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupad Paramahamsa. Ashtotar His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirahe Nasta Prayashva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Canto 6, Chapter 15, Narada and Angira instructs King Chitraketu, verse 25. Ayam hi dehi no deho. Ayam hi dehi no deho. Dravya jnana kriyatmaka. Dravya jnana kriyatmaka. Dehino vividha klesha. Dehino vividha klesha. Santapakrita udharitaha. Santapakrid udharitaha. Ayam hi dehino deho. Dravya jnana kriyatmaka. Dehino vividha klesha. Santapakrid udharitaha. Ayam hi dehino deho. Dravya jnana kriyatmaka. Dehino vividha klesha. Santapakrid udharitaha. Abhay. Ayam hi dehino deho. Dravya jnana kriyatmaka. Dehino vividha klesha. Mataji. Ayam hi dehino deho. Jnana kriyatmaka. Dehino vividha klesha. Santapakrid udharitaha. Ayam hi dehino deho. Dravya jnana kriyatmaka. Dehino vividha klesha. Santapakrit udharitaha. Ayam, this, he, certainly, dehina, of the living entity, deha, body, dravya jnana kriya atmakaha, consisting of the material elements, the senses for acquiring knowledge, and the acting senses, dehina, of the living entity, vividha, various, klesha, sufferings, santapa, and of pains. Krit, the cause, udahratah, is declared. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. The living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body, which is a combination of the physical elements, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and the five senses of action, along with the mind. Through the mind, the living entity suffers three kinds of tribulations: Adi Bhautika, Adi Devika, and Adhyatmika. Therefore, this body is the source of all miseries. Purport. Please repeat the translation. The living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body, which is a combination of the physical elements, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and the five senses of action, along with the mind. Through the mind, the living entity suffers three kinds of tribulations: Adi Bhautika, Adi Devika, and Adhyatmika. Therefore, this body is the source of all miseries. Purport. In the 5th canto, 5.5.4, while instructing his sons, Rishabdev said, Ayan api kleshada asa deha. The body, although temporary, is the cause of all the miseries of material existence. As already discussed in the previous verse, the entire material creation is based on mental concoction. The mind sometimes induces us to think that if we purchase an automobile, we can enjoy the physical elements such as earth, water, air, and fire, combined in form of iron, plastic, petrol, and so on. Working with the five material elements, Panchabhutas, as well as with our five knowledge-gathering senses, like the eyes, ears, and tongue, and our five active senses, like the hands and legs, we become involved in the material condition. Thus, we are subjected to the tribulations known as Adhyatmic, Adidevik, and Adi Bhautika. The mind is the center because the mind creates all these things. As soon as the material object is struck, however, the mind is affected and we suffer. For example, when the material elements, the working senses, and the knowledge-gathering senses, we create a very nice car. And when the car is accidentally smashed in the collision, the mind suffers, and through the mind, the living entity suffers. The fact is that the living entity, while concocting with the mind, creates the material condition, because matter is destructible. Through the material condition, the living entity suffers. Otherwise, the living entity is detached from all material conditions. When one comes to the Brahman platform, the platform of spiritual life, fully understanding that he is a spiritual soul, Aham Brahmasmi, he is no longer affected by lamentation or hankering. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18.54, Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma na sochti na kankshati. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 15.7, the Lord says, Mamaivamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasastin indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. The living entity in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to the conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which includes the mind. The living entity is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is unaffected by material conditions. But because the mind, Manaha, is affected, the senses are affected, and the living entity struggles for existence within this material world. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Caitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarobhyasya kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are going through an interesting set of verses where Narad Muni and Angira Muni are instructing King Chitraketu, who was suffering from lamentation, from the separation from his son, whom he acquired after a long time and after a lot of struggle. So while he received the son, he was been told that the son will be the cause of happiness, at the same time will be the cause of suffering. But when you are expecting something and you get that thing, you don't realize the suffering part. In Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned this material world is dukkhalayam asashvatam. That this material world is full of miseries. There are so many miseries within this material world. And as Prabhupada is in this verse also, it is mentioned that one identifies oneself with the mind and is completely absorbed in the body. And because of which he suffers the three kinds of miseries: Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika and Adi Devika. So these three miseries is going through just because he is identifying himself with the body, completely absorbed in the body. Generally we see, and Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice example of a car. When somebody is involved in an accident and the car is damaged, even though the person himself is not affected or injured, but still he feels the pain. There is an interesting story, like there was once a person going in a Ferrari and somebody scratched the car, and this person comes out and looks at the scratch and he is repenting, he is crying. And everyone gathered around him and thinking, oh no, and somebody tried to pacify him, came and pacify him, saying, don't cry, everything will be okay. He said, no, my car, it's scratched. And the person said, you've lost your hand which was outside. So he was not repenting for the hand, but he was repenting for the car, because he was so much attached to the car more than his own body. So he was feeling the pain of the car rather than, he did not even realize his hand had been chopped off as well. So this is the conception of a person who is absorbed in body, who is associating himself with material things. There is another nice pastime, very similar pastime where Lord Ram, not very similar but different. So Lord Ram was going through the forest after Mother Sita had been kidnapped, and Lord Ram was repenting, he was crying. he was looking for Sita with Ram and Lakshman, both were going through the forest and looking for Sita and crying. And Mother Parvati and Lord Shiva happened to pass from there. And Mother Parvati told Lord Shiva, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he can get Sita. He knows where Sita is. Why doesn't he just go and get? Why is he roaming in the forest, shouting and crying and lamenting like this, like a mundane person? And of course, Lord Shiva knows everything. So Lord Shiva told Mother Parvati, why don't you go and ask Lord Ram himself? So Mother Parvati thought, let me test Lord Ram. So she came in the form of Sita Devi. And she came in front of, because Mother Parvati could change her form. So she changed her form into the form of Mother Sita and came in front of Lord Ram. And when Lord Ram saw Mother Parvati in the form of Mother Sita, he paid his obeisances and said, please accept my obeisances, Mother Parvati. And Mother Parvati thought, how did Lord Ram know? He was searching for Sita. And if somebody is searching for something and finds even the illusory form of that, like a person going in the desert, even an illusory form of water, he immediately feels that it is water and chases after that mirage. But here Lord Ram, who was searching for Sita, appearing like he is lamenting, crying, shouting in the forest, when he saw Mother Parvati dressed as Mother Sita, he was completely on the he is still on the transcendental path. He was not like a materialist who is identifying with the object. So he immediately paid obeisance and said, Mother Parvati, what makes you come here? And Mother Parvati immediately disappeared. She thought, I must have not put up my makeup properly. So she went back and came back again second time, dressed up more like Mother Sita. And again, Lord Ram said, Mother Parvati, what brings you here? So this is the difference between a person who is in the material consciousness and the Lord himself. Even though he may appear like a normal human being, he may act like a normal human being, but he's still transcendentally on the supreme platform. He is completely absolute. So whatever the Lord does is perfect and complete. We are reading in Ishopanishad at the moment. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasha Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So Lord is perfect and complete, and whatever emanations come from the Lord, they are also perfect and complete. And even though so many perfect units come from manifest from the Lord, but he still remains the complete whole. So Lord never diminishes in his absolute, from his absolute platform, even though so many universes, so many incarnations manifest from his body. And all those expansions are also perfect and complete in itself. So here we are reading in the verse which is mentioned, the living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body. So 4 classes of men are there. The karmis, jnanis, yogis. Prabhupada makes the point in the previous purports. So there are 4 classes of men: the karmis, jnanis, yogis, and the bhaktas. Of which the karmis is what is spoken about here. And this verse is quoted from 5th canto. Nunam pramartha kurute vikarma yat indrapritya apranoti na sadhu mani yatha atmanoyam asanapi kleshadasa deha. Srila Prabhupada is quoting this verse right in the beginning of the purport, that when a person considers sense gratification as the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activities. So this is when one does not understand the higher principles of life. What is the cause? Why is he here? So again, in the Ishopanishad it is mentioned there is avidya and vidya. So unless one cultivates vidya, which is transcendental knowledge, the ignorance is going to engage or bind him into the material world. But at the same time, it is mentioned, if one has the knowledge of avidya, nescience, and vidya, the transcendental science, then he can, that knowledge in the combination can deliver him from the material world. So it is very important that we understand this material world along with the spiritual science. So many times we see, it is asked, why do we have to have entire creation in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam? In second canto it comes, third canto it comes, fifth canto it comes. It is repeated multiple times. The creation is repeated. So why do we need to hear about creation? So the reason is, if when we hear about creation, and as Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, the entire material creation is based on mental concoction. So when we hear about creation, we understand the temporary nature of creation. That is the first thing we understand. The second thing we understand is, whatever is given in this material world, whatever is there, whatever is the cause of material creation, that itself is the cause of its destruction. So the first point we understand is the temporary nature of material world. The second thing we understand is, whatever is the cause of creation of material universes and world is the same cause for its destruction. And then we can understand is that we have been cheated here. So imagine if you have been given something, and the thing which you like the most, you want it, you desire for it, and immediately taken away from you. And this is exactly what happened with Maharaj Chitraketu. He was given, he was lamenting, he was longing for a son. He was given that son and then taken away from the material energy, by the material energy. So this is exactly what happens in the material world. We have been given, and this is how the whole material world is designed. So what is the cause? Let's understand what is the cause of material creation. So what is the first thing that instigates the creation of the material world? Anyone? Of course, the desires of the living entity is the first, but in the material elements, what is the first thing which makes material creation happen? Sorry? Sound? Glance of the Lord, which is spiritual. But what does the glance of the Lord do to the material energy? The time, the Kala Shakti of the Lord. So when the Lord glances on the Mahat Tattva, the time element creates, it instigates. It's like the primordial soup, like in the soup where the water is boiling, and immediately you put some, or oil is boiling and you put some masalas. There is something happens. Matajis would know more. When you put some masalas or some spices into the boiling oil, then there is some noise, some crackling happens, and immediately the taste of the entire food changes. So as soon as that glance of the Lord, which is the time element, touches the Mahat Tattva, immediately the gunas manifest. So what is the first thing which touches is the time element. And then the gunas manifest. And it is mentioned in the third canto, and Prabhupada makes this point in the purport as well, that as soon as the gunas appear, then the false ego, ahankara, manifests. And then the 5 tanmatras, the gross elements, earth, water, air, fire, ether. So they manifest. And then the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, gnanendriyas, ears, eyes, skin, nose, tongue, they manifest. And then the 5 action, karmendriya, action senses, hand, feet, voice, anus, genital, they manifest. And then the demigods and mind manifest. And finally the ignorance. So these are the 6 things which manifest, which is part of the primary creation. And we see that these 6 things are the cause of destruction of the entire universe as well. So it is mentioned in the same section in the 3rd canto that the first element which destroys everything in this material world is time. We see with the passing of time, everything is destroyed. And in 12th canto again it is mentioned there are 4 kinds of destruction. What is the first destruction mentioned in the 4, out of those 4, which is the first one? It is continuous, nityam. So continuously everything is being destroyed with the effect of time. So time is the most powerful where everything is destroyed. By the passing of time, even the universes are destroyed. Even life of Brahma comes to an end by the passing of time. So the time, which is the first cause of creation, is the first element which destroys. And it's interesting, in the 12th canto, at the beginning of 12th canto, it is mentioned, so many kings, so many names of the kings were mentioned until 12th canto, who appeared in different yugas, right from Chandravamsi, Suryavamsa, and all those dynasties were mentioned, and the names of the kings were mentioned, and finally in the 12th canto it is mentioned, where are they all? They were such powerful kings who had so much of power that they could, Maharaj Parikshit could even stop Kali. So that was the power of these kings. Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, all this personality could even challenge demigods. Ravana had Vayu, Indra and time sitting as Kala, sitting as their servants. So these were so powerful demons, kings. But then in the 12th canto it is mentioned, where are they all? With the passing of time, everyone gets, however powerful a personality may be, he gets destroyed, he gets annihilated. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kalos mean Lokashaya Krit. So his time element, in the form of time, he destroys everything. So time, which is the first element, which is the cause of this creation itself, is the destroyer of everything in this material world. The second kind of destruction mentioned in 12th canto is at the end of Brahma's day. Now we see the most powerful personality within this universe. If we can calculate the powers of everyone, we can understand that it is Lord Brahma. Nobody is more powerful than Lord Brahma. Nobody is more intelligent than Lord Brahma, because he was been chosen to create the entire universe. So imagine how powerful he should be. But again, he himself, who lives for 1000 yuga cycle, his one day, just the day of Brahma, which is known as one kalpa, is 1000 yuga cycle, and same as the night, like that he lives for 100 years, which is a pretty long time. 1000 yuga cycles, imagine. And still, there is a time when his day comes to an end. There is another, and the entire universe gets, except for the first 3 planetary systems, Jana, Tapas and Maharloka, everything gets filled with water at the end of Brahma's day, when Brahma goes to sleep, and everything gets annihilated. So there is second level of destruction. Then third level of destruction is mentioned in Bhagavatam, is at the end of Brahma's life. And after 100 years is over, the complete universe is destroyed. And the last destruction is mentioned in Bhagavatam is when one becomes liberated. His complete identity, material identity is destroyed. He goes back home, back to Godhead. So like this, 4 types of destruction are mentioned, but all these destructions happen by the effect of Kala. With the passing of time, everything gets destroyed. Then the second type of destruction mentioned in 3rd canto is through Dravya. Dravya means material elements. Whatever creation we do, it has got an expiry associated with it. We go to supermarket, there are lanes, there are aisles of food stuff, different things are there. But everything has got an expiry. Dravya, material elements have got an expiry. Again, it is by the effect of time, but still it is known as the second level of destruction, which is through the Dravya. It is mentioned in this verse as well. Dravya Gnana Kriyatmakam. So all this destruction, second type of destruction mentioned, the first one was Kala, destroys everything. Then second level is Dravya. And by the effect of Dravya, even at the end of Brahma's day, everything becomes filled with, and it is mentioned, it's the fire rises in the until the upper planetary system and burns away everything, destroys everything. From the Ananta says, the fire destroys everything. So that is the second type of destruction. And the third destruction which happens is through the guna. Now, this one is not through the effect of time. This one is through the effect of one's consciousness himself. So we saw that when time element comes in contact with Mahat Tattva, the first thing which comes into manifestation is the gunas. And these gunas are which bind one to be an interesting point which is mentioned in the verse and the purport is that one is so much absorbed in the body, that is because of the effect of the guna he is in. If one is predominantly in the mode of goodness, he will not be absorbed in the bodily conception. He will be more on the spiritual conception. But because of the gunas of passion and ignorance, one is more and more absorbed in the bodily conception. And this destroys him. Whatever activities we perform in the mode of passion and ignorance, under the gunas of passion and ignorance, they destroy one. They destroy his body. Like, what are the activities we do in ignorance? So, especially when we take initiation, we are being asked to take vows. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. So these are the activities which one does predominantly in the mode of ignorance. And why are we asked not to do those activities? Because they destroy one's consciousness. So this is the effect of guna. This is the third level, and Bhagavatam mentions in third canto that these are the three reasons why things get destroyed: Kala, Dravya, and Guna. And we cannot do anything about Kala, we cannot do anything about Dravya, but we can do something about the Gunas. And that is what is mentioned by Angira Muni and Narad Muni here to Maharaj Chitraketu, that don't be absorbed in the material conception of life. Don't be absorbed under the Gunas. Liberate yourself. Come out of the clutches of the gunas. And as long as one is under the control of the gunas, what will happen? He will suffer adhyatmic, adidevik and adi bhautik miseries. So when we say come out of the clutches of gunas, what does that mean? Come out of the conscious and bodily conception, as it is mentioned, absorbed in bodily conception. There's an interesting another not pastime, but a story where once Einstein was going in a train. So Einstein, while he was traveling in a train, he saw ticket checker. Usually in trains you see ticket checker comes and checks your ticket. Any of the kids have been to train? Have you been in a train? Don't remember, yeah? Yeah. You have to be born in Bombay to remember. Sorry? Conductor. Yeah. Especially when you go to Puffing Billy. Anybody has gone to Puffing Billy? Kids? Yeah, now you remember. Yeah. So, Puffing Billy train, there is a fat conductor who comes and checks your tickets. So, similarly, in the normal trains also, you get a ticket checker or a conductor who comes and checks your ticket. So once Einstein was going in first class and he saw the ticket checker and immediately started searching for ticket. He couldn't find his ticket. He checked all his pocket, he checked all his bags. And he couldn't find a ticket. And the ticket checker, he came closer and closer, and then Einstein is still searching for ticket and he thought, I'm lost, what to do? So he's trying to find his ticket. At one point, when the ticket checker comes, he said, "Oh, you are Einstein, I know you. You would never travel without a ticket. He was a famous personality, right? So, you are Einstein, don't worry about it. You would have the ticket." So, and he passed away. The ticket checker passed away, passed through. But Einstein was searching for a ticket. And then when the ticket conductor or checker saw back, Einstein is still searching for the ticket. He came back and said, don't worry about the ticket. I know you wouldn't travel without a ticket. He said, no, I'm not searching the ticket to show it to you, but I don't remember where I'm supposed to get down, and which is mentioned on the ticket. So he was so much absorbed in whatever he was reading or doing that he even couldn't remember where he was wanting to get down. There is another incident when once Einstein went to a bank, and the bank teller asked Einstein, what is your name? He couldn't remember his own name. So these are the personalities who are so much absorbed in some of their experiments or the theories which they are looking at, that they don't remember anything outside. So this is what absorption, level of absorption we are supposed to have for the Lord. It is mentioned, there are different levels of absorption. The first level is attention. When you are attentive to something, attentive to detail, then you become attracted to that particular activity. Especially deity worship, when you are doing deity worship, you need to be attentive. And then you become attracted to that detail. And then you develop attachment to that process. And we do this different level of absorptions all the time, especially when we are chanting. We need to be attentive. That is why it is mentioned, the first, it is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting the holy names of the Lord. So one has to be attentive, and by attentiveness, he becomes attracted to chanting, and then he develops attachment for that particular process. And by attachment comes affection, and by affection then finally comes absorption. So this is a process which one has to follow. One has to be attentive, then he will become attracted, then he will develop attachment, and then attachment will culminate into affection, and affection culminates into absorption. And this we can relate very much from the process of Shraddha to Prema. So when we go through this process of sadhana bhakti, we come from Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha to Bhajana Kriya to Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha. So this all part are attention. So to create Anartha Nivritti, we need to be attentive, and then become attraction develops. So then comes Nishtha. Then Ruchi, Asakti. So Ruchi is the attachment, and Asakti is the affection, and then absorption, Bhava and Prema develops by the mercy of the Lord. So these are different levels of absorption which are required, and we see materialists are sometimes more attentive and absorbed in what they do than sometimes as devotees we are not so much absorbed in the process. Especially I can tell for one of our managers who comes to office. He never comes to office. I don't know time when he comes or leaves office, because he's always available, even in car, even while sleeping, because he is in New Zealand and I'm here. So sometimes I text him at 7 or 8 or 9 at night, he immediately replies. Within a couple of seconds I get a reply. So it must be 11 o'clock there. And sometimes he does emails early morning, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So I haven't seen that kind of absorption in my case in spiritual life. So sometimes I get inspired by him. So that is the level of absorption we need in our spiritual life. Okay, so I'll stop here. So we discussed about the creation, we discussed about the elements which are the cause of creation. At the same time, these are the same elements which are the cause of destruction, and one of them is mind. We did not speak much about the mind, but this is one of those things where everything is based on mental concoction. And then we spoke about absorption, how it is required for us to cultivate the mind to be absorbed more in spiritual life than in the material life. And then the different levels of absorption we heard about: attention, attraction, affection. Attention, attraction, attachment, affection, and absorption. So, if anybody has got any questions or comments.
Is that related to chanting?
Which one?
Or what's those stages of?
We can implement those stages for chanting as well.
What's that related to? Just general development of relationship with Krishna?
That's right. So it can be used in any of the practices or processes. So and especially we can use this in chanting or deity worship. When you are attentive to something, when you are chanting attentively, you develop attraction gradually for chanting. Because in the initial stages, we are not so much, we have to force ourselves to chant. We don't have attraction for chanting. But attentive chanting leads to attraction. And then that leads to affection. And then we become attached to, it leads to attachment. Then it becomes our second nature. Attachment and then affection. So we become attached to the process when we do it attentively and we are attracted to it. Only by the attraction we can become attached to something. And we see devotees chant for 20, 30 years, it's only because they are attached to chanting. Because it is very difficult. I remember in the initial days, Kripa Sindhu Prabhu used to call me every week and ask me, how many rounds you have been chanting? And I used to tell him, 1 round sometimes. So it was never a regular thing. So 1 or 2 days I would chant, and then, because there was no attraction for it. Even today I don't have attraction, but still now it has become, I've got a little bit of like, no, I have to do this. There is kind of attachment, affection is there to chanting. I like to chant. It's not now, he does not have to call me every week and ask me, how many rounds you are chanting? I like to chant. There is some kind of attachment there. No, he does call me. Yeah, he does call me. So he's planning to come. Anyways, but
What about, sometimes we see devotees chanting for 20 or 30 years and they stop chanting.
yes, aparadas, offenses.
So,
Again, A.
So chanting is attentive first.
That's right. And that's what we chant every morning. It is also an offense to be inattentive whilst chanting. And so the first thing is attention, attentiveness. It's 11th, yeah, 11th offense. Yes.
After understanding so many instructions, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Offense. Okay, so attentiveness first, which means just hearing.
Hearing, that's right. Being attentive means when you are speaking the holy names of the Lord, you have to hear them.
And then the next stage is?
Attraction develops for the process. Different for different people. I know some devotees who from day one are like chanting on different level. You can feel they're chanting with attraction, affection.
Okay, so they're attracted because the name is attractive.
That's right. Again, depends on the guna which they are in. So if they are predominantly in the mode of goodness, it's easy for them to just be attentive and attracted to the holy names. There's a lot of baggages we carry.
I don't think it's easy for anybody.
Sorry?
I don't think it's easy for anybody.
It depends how many baggages we have got, we are carrying from our previous lives.
There has to be a big baggage car on the train.
Yes. Attachment.
Attachment. No, because one is attracted. One
That's right.
becomes,
Attached to the process.
but our material, and that's why Untitled is the stage
Hmm.
of clearing
Hmm.
those attachments
Yes,
to material things
that's right.
and replacing it with attachment for
Hmm.
spiritual
Yes.
things.
Hmm.
Through chanting, effectively.
Yes.
That's our process.
Yes.
Yeah. Although the deity worship is important because that keeps us also on a clean and
Hmm.
properly situated,
Hmm.
purified environment
Yes.
we live in. Okay, so attraction, affection, then
So after attention, attraction, attachment comes affection. So when you attach to the process, you become affected, and then final stage is absorption, complete absorption, which is bhava and prema, you can say.
it must be related to chanting, it can't be
Yes.
anything else really.
Yeah, it's sadhana bhakti basically. From Shraddha, we know the 9 stages which are there. So Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha. So then we are attached. Then it's Ruchi, we are affect.
How come one day we're attached, the next day we just lazy?
There's again, the gunas are acting. Gunas are always fighting for supremacy. So one day we have tried to, and we have, our mode of goodness is more stronger, and the next day, passion and ignorance. And that is why it is very important, as it is mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the mind, everything is a concoction of mind. So one day our mind will cooperate, but the other day, the mind will say, nah, you have to listen to me, yesterday I listened to you, so today is my turn. So if one can identify to be separate from the mind, it becomes easy when one can understand that, okay, this is not what I want. This is the mind's concoction.
Because sometimes the devotee chants Hare Krishna and then they feel super enthusiastic and then they want to tell everybody what to do.
Yeah, there are multiple levels to that. Adi Bhautik, Adhyatmik, Adi Devik miseries are also working. So sometimes, yes, I would love to come for Mangalarti, but then after a week, my Adhyatmik miseries manifest. And the body is so thrashed that I cannot even speak or wake up or walk. So, so there are previous karmas which are acting, the gunas are acting, the miseries are there which are coming by the effect of previous karmas. So all those things are in combination, but the whole point is we have to continue. As there is an interesting analogy given in Ishopanishad. It is mentioned, if a body is like a nut, if it is attached to a hand is like a nut. If it is attached to the body, it has any use, but it is separated from the body, the hand itself has no use. So similarly, the nut, if it is connected to the machine, machinery nut. So if a nut is connected to the machine, then it is of use, but if it has come out of the machine, it has no use, it has no value. So it's still a nut, but it can be sold for $2. Its value is $2 once it's out of the machine, but with the machine, it can do some valuable things. So similarly, a body, if it's used in the service of the Supreme, then it has value, otherwise it has no value. So, this very nice analogies are there in Ishopanishad.
The attraction stage is in one sense a battle between the attraction for material things
Yeah,
and the attraction for Krishna.
Vishaya vinivartante.
Even though we get bashed up,
Hmm.
we still think,
Yeah.
I've got to do, got to,
Hmm.
Prabhupada says, I've got to have a car.
Hmm. Yes.
Got to have a car, and if I've got a car, I'm happy.
Hmm. That's right.
If I don't have a car, I'm unhappy.
Yes.
But one has to come to the comes to the understanding after having quite a few cars, even cars, not everything.
That's right.
And cars are a good example actually, because a new car is great,
Hmm.
but old car's not so good. Still gets you around, but it's not as prestigious. You don't feel as
Yes.
But actually, that feeling is just illusion, total illusion.
Yes.
But you have to. We can't be attracted to Krishna when you're attracted to all these other things, and so that process of detachment takes time, I think.
And it happens simultaneously, as it is mentioned. Param drishtva nivartate vishaya vinivartante niharasya dehina rasovarjam rasopi asya param drishtva nivartate. So as we get a higher taste, the lower taste automatically disappears. So one does not have to work hard to get rid of the lower taste. All one has to do is work on the attraction part. So if one works on the attraction part, the detachment happens simultaneously.
It's in that Bhagavatam verse, Hareshna Bhava Bhakti. Pushti, tushti, what's the next one?
I don't know.
There's nourishment.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And there's
Fulfillment, yeah.
renunciation.
Yes.
Becoming detached.
Hmm.
Because you're completely absorbed.
That's right. Yes.
But that's a big challenge because, that's the challenge in many respects,
Hmm.
because we're all looking for, the new Mercedes
Hmm.
or whatever it is, with the new car.
Hmm.
And you almost can't stop that because
Hmm.
it's so conditioned.
Hmm. Yes.
My car's 8 years old now. This was a good car when it was brand new, but now it's getting a bit old.
Hmm.
I'll be happy when I get a new car. But then I'm thinking, eventually I'm going to die, and it won't matter what car I have.
Yes.
Yeah. It depends on the stage of life that a person is
Hmm.
in.
That's right.
But if you're chanting Hare Krishna properly, or if you're chanting with attention,
Hmm.
you become absorbed in the mantra, then everything else just disappears.
Yes.
Right? Everything else just dissolves,
Hmm.
and that's all there is.
Hmm.
Sometimes I've been chanting Hare Krishna, I got so absorbed in it, I forgot what number round I'm up to.
Hmm.
I didn't pull the beats down,
Yes.
and I'm looking, I'm thinking, what did I do? I just chanted Hare Krishna, I just lost track of it.
Hmm. Yes.
Now I have to look at my watch to work out, okay, must have done so many rounds.
Hmm.
But then you stop chanting and then you think, got to get back to get my new car. Or whatever it is to get
Yes.
feed the kids, get them off to school,
Hmm.
So what was it again?
The first one is attention,
Attraction.
develops attraction, attachment,
Attachment.
and then affection. By attachment, you develop affection for it. And then finally, when you are affected to something, you are always absorbed into it.
So 5 A's.
5 A's.
We should take that away from today's class.
And that process can be stopped by anarthas, another A,
Attention, attraction,
attachment.
attachment.
Absorption.
Okay, I'm going to write that down. You will remember that.
Okay, we can stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Granth Raj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Thank you all for coming.